Hi everyone and welcome to another speed build. Today I have a quick little build for you all. I'm creating a starter burger stand and I just called it that because it did come in at under 20,000 simoleons. It's a little more dubious what's considered a starter restaurant, of course, though, because it's nearly impossible to be able to afford both a house and a restaurant right after you start the game, especially since the chef stand itself costs 3,000 to 4,000 simoleons. But I figure it's appropriate to call it that, seeing as it did come in under that 20,000 simoleon mark, and it's something that you don't really have to have your sim save up a crazy amount of money to be able to own. And I did create this to use in my Seasons Let's Play because in the last part of that, one of the sims, whose name is Robin, did age up into a young adult, and something I've been wanting to do with her since the beginning of the series is have her own a restaurant. And I know it's a little unrealistic to have an 18-year-old fresh out of high school owning their own restaurant, but we only have 6 or so parts left of the series, and I really wanted to have some time to explore that before it ended, so we're just gonna jump right into it right off the bat. And just a quick synopsis of that series in case you haven't seen it, just so you're not, wondering what I'm talking about, is that it began after two sisters named Robin and Rachel lost their parents after they got into an accident, and they ended up moving in with their Aunt Madison, who is pretty young herself, so she wasn't really ready to take on the responsibility of raising two of them, but she's grown a lot. They've all kind of adjusted to this new life. And while it had a very sad beginning, the series has become so much happier as it's progressed. And I've just had so much fun with it. It's definitely one of my favorite series that I've done. And another detail about the series that is pretty important to this video is that Robin and Rachel's parents did own a restaurant. And that is why Robin wanted to own a restaurant herself. She was always inspired by that. It was something she always wanted to do herself. She wanted to own a restaurant, wanted to become a chef. And now that she's out of high school, she is finally at the point in her life where she can do that. And she does have some money left that was, supposed to have been from her parents' estate. So she's using some of that money, some of that remaining money, to purchase her own little restaurant just to start on this dream. This is just a starting point. Maybe in the future she could go on to greater things, although we definitely won't have much time to do that within this series. But they did have about 25,000 simoleons left before I started building this restaurant, so ultimately I wanted to be under 20,000 simoleons just so they weren't completely tapped out after this. Ideally, I wanted to have it come in at under 15,000 simoleons, but I completely failed at that because initially I gave them 15,000 to work with, but I quickly realized that wasn't going to be enough, so I gave them an extra 4,000 or so simoleons, so the total came to 19,000 something simoleons, which I still think is pretty good for what I did, and I really like how this turned out despite being so simple. Initially, I was going to make something that was a little bit more run down and grungy, like I was thinking about using the corrugated metal wallpaper that came with Strangerville, but I decided not to do that. I decided to go for more of a park concession stand kind of a look, so it's more so that it's plain. It's just very plain and simple rather than that it's run down. I mean, there's definitely some things about it that aren't really in the best shape. Like you use those really cheap counters from City Living that look a little worn. But there aren't cracks all over the walls. There isn't like mildew and mold, where those water stains all over the place. Like it's in decent shape. It's just a little worn. But that's something we can hopefully improve on before the series ends. I mean, I'm probably only going to run it 3 or 4 times before the series ends. But we might be able to make improvements to it in those 3 or 4 parts that I go in here and run it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do. And I did some things to this restaurant that I was imagining were things that she did that were fairly cheap to try to spice it up a little bit. Like I took these lights that came with toddler stuff and I stuck them in a circle around it just because I thought that would be something to make it feel a little bit less plain, something to make it feel more pretty, and it's something that realistically wouldn't be crazy expensive to do, like you just stick some posts in the ground and string some lights around it. And I just really love how that looks. And I also found that burger decal, which just looked it just worked so well for this because the decals that came with Dine Out I felt were a little too fancy for what this is supposed to be, but that is absolutely perfect. And another thing is that I haven't really come up with the name we're going to use for this in the series because I'm not going to just call it Burger Stand. That's not terribly exciting. Ultimately, I wanted to have a name that's kind of a play on Robin. So I was thinking maybe we could call it the Robin's Nest, although I'm not sure how that really works for a burger stand. I mean, I think it kind of works because in the end, I stuck a bunch of plants around the gravel that's kind of in a circle, so it's kind of like a nest shape. So maybe that works. There's also a burger restaurant in the US called Red Robin, so I don't know, maybe we call it Blue Robin as kind of a play on that. I'd love to know what ideas you all have, because I'm sure you all could probably come up with better ideas than those two that I just said. So let me know down below if you have any name ideas for this restaurant. Another detail that I added to this was that little crab decal that I stuck under the window for the chef station, which may seem a little out of place in a burger restaurant, but I stuck it there because the restaurant that Robin's parents did own was a seafood restaurant. So I felt like that was kind of a nice reference to that. You know, like that was something she stuck on this restaurant to remind herself of the one that her parents owned. I don't know. I just thought that was a really cute touch to that, but now I'm just sticking to all the plants. I was trying to keep the landscaping fairly cheap, but it ended up costing me more simoleons than I thought I was going to get this look across, because yeah, this is where I was like, oh crap, I need another 1,000 simoleons. I think before that, there's another point where I gave myself like 3,000 extra, and then I think I might have given myself a couple hundred more at some point. So yeah, I just took a little bit more than I thought I was going to accomplish what I wanted. And I mean, I could have just stuck less plants in, but I really had this specific look in my head that I wanted to recreate as best as I could, so I wanted the plants to look fairly lush, but I did use a lot of the cheaper plants. And then a weird thing here was that when I had all of those picnic tables with the umbrellas, it wasn't counting them as dining spots, even though they are. But when I got rid of one of them and then replaced it with a regular picnic table without the umbrella, it counted it. I don't know why that is. Like, once I made that swap, all of a sudden it counted all of the dining spots, so that's kind of weird. But your Sims can definitely use the umbrella tables. I play tested everything with this lot, and it does work, so your Sims can be seated there, and it's all perfectly fine. And actually, I kind of like the look of mixing the non-umbrella picnic tables in with the umbrella ones. It makes things feel a little less busy than it did when all of them had umbrellas. And the waiter station also works where it is. The unfortunate thing is that the Sims will actually have to walk in to be seated, which kind of breaks the realism a little bit, but it's fine. At least it functions. But we're almost at the end of the building part of the video, so as usual, if you want to download this, there will be a link to do so in the description. There will also be other stuff in there on how to find it in-game, and that's going to be all for me, so hope you enjoy the rest of the video.